Well, howdy, folks. It's Matthew, your friendly neighborhood technician. Well, it's been a fun week this past week. All the kiddos, my wife, myself, we all ended up coming down with the stomach flu. It was 2 days of hell for all of us, so that was no fun. We all kind of got it one at a time, and so it kind of just hit us starting about Wednesday and didn't end until yesterday, until Sunday, and so when multiple kids get sick and mom and dad get sick, it's pretty much time just to shut everything down. And so work comes to a complete halt. And that is why we're looking at the Lexus. But I figured since we're still looking at the Lexus, it's a good time to get some information going. Get some information out there. So this is the Lexus that I did the timing and water pump job. And as far as I know, yep, there's no big puddle under there or anything. The water pump job, the timing job, the AC job, the power steering pump job, belt tensioner, all that we changed, timing, everything that we changed on here is now good to go. I did end up having to redo the job, and I ended up going with a factory pump with a factory steel gasket along with high temperature oil resistant RTV. That is how I got it to seal, and that is how I will replace any Lexus LS 4.0 water pump from this point on. Will be nothing but factory, straight from the factory this time, not through a warehouse or anything like that. Just go to Lexus and get you a water pump with a steel gasket. And if you do get a factory water pump and it doesn't have a gasket, go ahead and get the steel gasket, because apparently that can happen also. So yeah, got everything done, got the car started up, everything was running great. Part of the burping process is, to let the engine idle for 10 minutes and then run the engine at 2,000 to 2,500 RPMs for 5 minutes and then shut it off and stuff like that. So I'd actually let the engine idle. It's kind of cold out nowadays, so I let the engine idle for more like 20-30 minutes, and it actually still hadn't finished burping itself out at that point, but I decided to give it a little help. That's when I brought the engine up to about 2,500 RPMs, and the vehicle continued to burp itself out. I got my heater working, everything else is working, and then all of a sudden, I noticed that it wouldn't pass what's called a Woot Test, where you take the throttle and you flip it just like that, just wide open, just flip it wide open like that, okay? Well, it wouldn't pass a Woot test. And so, and the reason why it's called a Woot is because when you flip it wide open real quick like that, it goes whoo, whoo. And so what it would do is go whoo, but then instead of coming back down, it cough and sputter and spit, and then struggle a little bit to regain its idle, but it would then regain its idle. And it was running rough. At the same time that I was doing that, I noticed that all of a sudden it started kicking out mass amounts of white smoke, pretty much all at once. There really was no warning to it, just all kinds of white smoke coming out of the exhaust. So now at this point I've got white smoke with kind of a funky smell to it coming out of the exhaust. The engine's running a little bit rough all of a sudden, and I'm just like, what the heck is going on? So I decided to pull the intake and take a look, the intake tube, and lo and behold, I had mass amounts of power steering fluid that I'm going to get cleaned up here inside of my intake. Well, some of you are wondering, how the heck is that possible? This video right now at this point is going to tell you and show you. So on the side of the power steering pump, sitting right down inside of here, all right, on the side of it, you'll notice that running from here, from this port, down through here, down here, you'll notice this vacuum line. And then you'll also notice this vacuum line that runs to your intake hose. These two vacuum lines are connected to what's known as a vacuum air control valve for the power steering pump. Okay? Now then, when this valve fails, and it's not going to give you too much of a warning. Some of you are just going to have a little bit of white smoke consistently coming out. Some of you may only have white smoke, a big puff of white smoke, when you start the car. Some of you may have rough running and consistent large amounts of white smoke. It all depends on how this sucker fails. So what happens is, this is the vacuum control module, also known as power steering air control vacuum, power steering control module. These are all terms you can look up to find it at part stores and stuff. And so this bolts into the bottom side of the power steering pump, and when it fails internally, what happens is it leaks internally, and these vacuum lines end up sucking and pulling all the power steering fluid up into the intake, where it then burns off and out of the exhaust. Okay, and so the best fix, now there's all kinds of information about a cut corner quick fix, where people take this out, install a 17 millimeter oil plug in there, and then cap off the vacuum lines. Yeah, kiddo. Yeah, I'll be there in a minute to get you dressed. Sorry about that, guys. And so you get a 17 millimeter oil cap, and you stick it where this goes in the power steering pump, and you cap off the vacuum lines, and apparently that's a quick fix. The reason why is because the cheapest I could find this part for was about $80–90. And so in town it was right at $100. So, but if you want to fix it right, you need to replace this. Now let's take a look at this. Let's take this over to the workbench. Let's take a look at this valve so you can see how and why it fails internally. So I'm going to fix my camera here. I got these little holders on it now. Maybe this is going to work. Alright, so here's our valve. So if this is still connected to your power steering pump and you're trying to figure out if this is your problem, first of all, look, if you don't have any other power steering leaks and everything else is dry, but you're losing power steering fluid, you're kicking out white smoke, you can't figure out where it comes from, anything like that, go ahead and pull these vacuum lines off. And what you'll see is on the inside of these vacuum lines, you'll see that they'll be wet. Now these are actually dry because I've washed them with soap and all that other stuff. I'm trying to salvage this stuff, but you'll see that inside of here and all around here is will be wet, and that's because the power steering fluid is leaking inside of this valve. The valve is sucking it in, and it's allowing it to leak into the vacuum system. And so that's a surefire way. Now I'm going to go ahead and dissect this valve so I can show you how it fails. Alright, what I'm going to do is use some compressed air here and see if I can blow this valve out. There we go. Okay, so here is now the valve inside of there, and you can see it's full of power steering fluid. Now let's look at this here. Here's our piece. Alright, look at those two little O-rings on there. Those are definitely wore out. We've got a little broken piece right there. Okay, and so it's these O-rings that fail. You know what? That's not broken. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's broken right there. So technically that's supposed to be there, but you see how that one is nice and uniform and smooth? And then turn it over. That one's not. That's because that one is broken. And so now you can see what's inside of the air control valve. See if I have like a little pick or something here. Anyways, so yeah, there you go. That is what fails. Now, if you really want to get technical, I don't know, you could probably go on a wild goose chase. I don't know if you could find this internally to just replace those and fix the valve itself. I doubt it. But there you go, folks. So if you're a Lexus LS 400 owner with a 4.0 engine and you start spitting and sputtering, you notice white smoke, or if you notice you're losing power steering fluid and there's no leaks or anything, check this valve and go ahead and replace it. And more than likely it's leaking internally and it's sucking power steering fluid, also known as ATF, inside of your intake. I thought I could get a good focus on that. All right, guys. Well, I better quit messing around now. It's time for me to get this Lexus going so I can get it back to these good folks and all that other good stuff. I appreciate everybody that watches my videos and comes and hangs out with me. Thanks for your support. If you have any questions or anything, just shoot them to me in the comments. We can trade emails, and maybe I can help walk you through a procedure or something, save you some money on your car. Just give me a shout out. All right, everybody, thanks for your support. This is Matthew, your friendly neighborhood technician, signing off.